Hi. Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Hurlock of AA Shop Marketing. Our hope is to unite shop owners to tackle common stress points and challenges that they're experiencing within the auto repair shop space. Our mission is to guide you towards the best solutions for your shop. So tune in, join the conversation, and let's move your business forward. Hey there, welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm Brad Hurlock, your host, and also one of the principals of AA Shop Marketing. We're here today with three different shop owners talking about CRMs and how these CRMs are playing into our shop, how they're helping our shop's business and how it's helping it grow, helping maintain customers, and how it's just part of the shop in general. We've got three different people with three different shop platforms. I'm looking forward to introducing each of them to you and starting the conversation. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. Chris, why don't you give us a start and tell us about your background and your shop, and we'll go from there.
I've been at the shop for 18 years as the store manager. I started out doing tires and oil changes, left and managed some other stores for several years and got away from the big box store, wanted more personal connection with customers. So came back to a single location. We're 8 bays, currently have 6 shop employees, 3 sales associates. Average kind of car count per day, we're in the 32 to 35 cars per day. And we're in a downtown area. Downtown stays full, so we have a lot of businesses around that people are able to bring their car by, drop it off, walk to work. We're not a big city. People are coming in from 10, 15 miles away normally to see us. We're pulling other closer townships as well.
Gerald, how about you?
Yeah, sure. Gerald Martin with Martin's Auto Service in Anna, Illinois. I think, Brad, you suggested we talk a little bit first about ourselves and then about the shop.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm in my mid-40s, married with 5 children. We are the 3rd generation running Martin's Auto Service. I'm a co-owner with my first cousin, Silas Martin. Both of us are grandsons of the gentleman who started the business here in Anna, Illinois in 1972. We're in our 52nd year. I grew up in the shop. My earliest memories, a lot of them are in the shop. I spent a lot of time, even just as a boy in grade school, coming in after school, like probably a lot of children in the industry did, sweeping floors and washing greasy wheel bearings and mineral spirits and the kind of things that we did in the mid-1980s. At present, we're still at the original location where this business was started. In Anna, Illinois, it's a very rural area. There are no large population centers really close to us. We have to go about 25, 30 miles to get to towns, 10,000 people or more. Our local town of Anna is under 5,000. So our customer base drives quite a distance to bring their vehicles here. Because of that, we offer loaner vehicles. We have 5 loaner cars in our fleet. And a lot of the time, at least several of them are out on loan. So as far as size of facility, we're not that large, right? At present, we're about a 10-bay shop. We are in the process of doing some building expansion, adding about an additional 8 bays. When we're finished, we'll have roughly 15,000 square feet of usable shop space. And no, we don't have enough staff.
Need more people.
Absolutely.
Colleen, how about you?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Colleen Shannon. My husband and I own Shannon Family Automotive in Folsom, California. We started the company in 2011. We just signed a lease and built a shop. And we started with 2 bays. We grew as the demand grew for our services in our community. We're in a community of about 90,000 people, mostly suburban. We have some pretty great industry in our community, so we can tap into both people who live here and people who work here. So in 2018, we expanded into 8 bays. And in 2023, about 18 months ago, we expanded into 13 bays by purchasing the building directly behind us. We're very much into growth. In that growth, as we started from 2 bays up to 5 to 8 to now 13, and we've tried a lot of different softwares. We've tried a lot of different programs. We've cobbled together a lot of different things to try to make it do what we want. And it wasn't until I took over as general manager about 18 months ago that we really started looking more at streamlining our processes, streamlining our CRM, streamlining the way that we communicate with customers, and really trying to get things as easy as possible for our staff. We found that a lot of the programs that we had before It was just too many platforms. It was too many places to look for information. It was too many ways for customers to get a hold of us, and balls were getting dropped. And when we expanded into 13 bays, we added more staff. We increased our capacity pretty significantly. And that was when we realized just how important it would be to get a CRM program that met our goals, that met our standards, and streamlined the process, because we just had too many balls juggling in too many different directions to make it work with what we were using previously. Does that answer all your questions, Brad?
It was great.
Okay.
And it actually led into another thought that I had, which was, I wonder how many people go through a process where their CRM is replacing a broken system, like a new CRM is replacing a broken system, as you described, or versus I'm starting a CRM. Like I've never used one. It's a brand new process for me from the beginning. So you touched on that a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that evolution of that streamlining process? And then maybe we can jump around and see if there was a CRM in place prior to for Chris or Gerald.
Sure. So we did not used to text our customers. We started in 2011. And so we've really gone from a server-based POS and CRM system, something that was very in-house. It was you pick up the phone, you call your customers. And as times have been changing with AI now, technology has changed a lot since we started our company. And so there's been a need to find different ways to leverage communication with our customers. We are out in California. We're not in the Silicon Valley. We're about 2.5 hours away from that. But we do have a very tech-savvy community. And so people wanted us to text them. People wanted to get emails from us. It wasn't always convenient for them to take a phone call. Yeah. And so trying to find different systems that would work for what our customers were demanding. As we would go to different conferences, we would see there were so many different programs out there, so many different options for CRM. And each one had one or two great things that we liked, but nobody had everything that we wanted. And so we would grab a piece from this company over here and then grab a different piece from that company over there. But as our car count increased from 200 cars a month up to now we're up to almost 600 cars a month, that's a lot more customers that you have to reach out to and a lot more people that you have to touch. And so a streamlined CRM program, something that was just a one-stop shop, became a lot more important to us.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have that now. And I'm sorry, did we talk about, let's talk about what CRM platforms we're actually using. You're using ShopGenie, I believe.
Yeah, we're using ShopGenie. The programs we had been using before, they were older companies that we felt were trying to modernize and trying to keep up with where the market was going. ShopGenie was very new on the scene. We met the founders. They were a bunch of young kids, which can sometimes be off-putting, thinking they don't know what they're talking about, but they were very tech savvy. They were very on top of it. And we felt like that would be a really good fit for a company that was brand new to what we were looking for, as opposed to somebody who is saying, we used to do this and now we're trying to do this new thing. So we dropped everything else we were using and we switched all in with ShopGenie.
Okay. All right. Gerald, why don't you tell us real quick about you're using AutoFlow. How long have you been using it and what did you use before that? Were you trying to convert a broken process or were you trying to create a new process?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I believe that we've been with AutoFlow for 3 years now. I believe it was summer of 2021 that we started with them. It was a winding road to get there. And it's probably outside the scope of this to get into all of those frustrations. But originally for 20 years, we used Mitchell Shop Management, which I think, Colleen, you had said before, hadn't you, maybe that you at one time were using Mitchell? So we used Mitchell and we also used Bolt-On Technologies product. We used Report Pro and their Caller ID add-on, which was a good thing. And let's see, the mobile or message manager, whatever they called their texting, we were probably in our area one of the first shops doing this type of thing. But I think that we realized that we were up against maybe a soft wall with Mitchell in terms of we would give feature requests, we would ask, and I'm pointing the finger here a little more maybe at Mitchell than at Bolt-On in that case, where we felt like they weren't really innovating in some areas that we thought they should have. And since we left them, I think there has been probably some changes. But anyway, we made the decision to go to Protractor. Techmetric was also on our short list of shop management systems we looked at. One of the reasons we went with Protractor as opposed to Techmetric is that Protractor is actually a full accounting system. And that's another story too, but we actually run our shop books in Protractor, write checks and everything. There's no QuickBooks integration to mess with. It's not quite as fancy as QuickBooks Online, but it does everything we need it to do. And so the Protractor is the one source of truth for us about shop numbers. It's all there. So then we went with AutoVitals. We were going to do AutoVitals for a DVI and CRM thing. Their TVPX customer screen, workflow screen is pure eye candy, a masterpiece of product design, and that's as far as it went. It was, man, I hope none of my friends from AutoVitals are on here, but under the hood, it was so unfinished. And the process of editing an inspection sheet, for instance, or making changes to the CRM settings was, you were dealing with a web interface that was like a mishmash of product design from, I don't know, the early 1990s, maybe. And again, hopefully they've come a long way since then.
Yeah.
They tried really hard to satisfy us, but we had to move on.
How many years ago was that?
That was also right after we made that change to Protractor which would have been fall of 2020, I believe. And so it was only like maybe 6 months or so that we lived through this with AutoVitals. And again, there were things we loved about the program, but there were also things where we just realized it wasn't going to work. We looked at AutoServe 1 for a bit, specifically because they have a decent integration with Protractor. We ended up going with AutoFlow, and I think it's one of the best decisions we could possibly make. We didn't realize maybe how important it even was at the time, but I would say this, with the team at AutoFlow, it's the people. There's a personal touch, personal attention. The support is, I think, probably has to be one of the best in the industry. If you have an issue and you email support, it's usually not more than 5 minutes, and someone from their team is actually calling you to talk about it. And so
nice.
the responsiveness is just amazing. But since we've joined AutoFlow, I would say that their product kind of started out as a workflow management tool. They have this notion of swim lanes where you can see the status of each vehicle as it moves from check-in through inspection, estimating, waiting on a technician, servicing, quality control, completion type thing. But it has become a tremendous digital vehicle inspection platform and has enough of CRM features in it that it's become, I think, a full-on replacement for some of the dedicated CRM platforms where we have, for instance, we have online scheduling. We have the ability to, when somebody does create an appointment, they get immediately an appointment notification to their phone, allows them to add it to their calendar. 24 hours ahead of their visit, they're getting a reminder. During the service, they get text messages with updates. They get their inspection report delivered via text message. We can send an authorization link via text message. We can collect payment via text message. And then the day after follow-up text is also going out as a text message. Then there's other hidden moving parts. For instance, if that vehicle was in for oil change, then there's going to be a future text message scheduled, sending them a message when we believe that it would be their time for their service, saying your vehicle's about due for an oil change. And yeah, it's predictive even, where if they've been in more than once, it calculates their average daily mileage and uses that to send that message. Really, I think we've grown with the program and the program has grown with us both ways. And the team has just been like super amazing with working with them to build new features and taking some of the ideas that came not only from our shop, but from other shops as well, that were brilliant ideas that they've actually implemented and built into the tool. But that's the software side. And I think when we're talking about CRM, we make a mistake if we get too fixated on the tool we're using to do it, right? Because it's not just about a texting or emailing tool. Yeah. And of course, I think Colleen mentioned briefly AI. I'm not sure if there is anything like artificial intelligence, right? It's machine learning or large language models, whatever they want to call it. I don't think that these tools are going to replace that human touch and the human connection.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt that the tool is just a starting point, right? The tool is just a starting point. It's an enabler to do these things more efficiently. It's not, and actually I jotted down a question I want to have for you about the text message that are sending out. But before we go there, I want to get a chance to Chris for him to talk about hits and how long they've been using it and how they've evolved using it. You were mentioning before, Chris, that it was a local platform and now it's a cloud-based platform. Why don't you talk a little bit about hits and about how your shop is using it? Go ahead.
Yeah, we've been using hits for our POS system for 18 to 20 years. When we first started it with the blue screen, the old DOS blue screen. Thankfully, they've updated that, but now we're to a web-based platform. And they just added the Hits Digital CRM side to that. And we're very new into it. We're only a month in. And we're trying to strategically put all these processes into place. There's more to it than what we're doing right now. Mainly just started with our online appointment, text messaging for confirmations for appointment. Whenever the vehicle's ready, automatic text message it out, let them know that it's ready. And we're trying to take some of our time back. We see so many cars a day. We've got 3 people on the sales counter. If we're calling everybody what's wrong with their car, when their car's ready and confirming appointments, we don't have time to even answer the phone and try to get people in. So just we can get rid of the confirmation and the ready text. That brings a lot more time to our day to really focus on the cars that we have in front and make sure that we experience. Eventually, I want to add in more follow-up. We haven't even started doing follow-up text yet. We just want to try to get the process and procedure perfected so we can move on to the next step and then move on to DVI inspections and stuff like that.
Well, I like the approach. Go ahead, Colleen.
Gerald and Chris both brought up a really interesting point about how a good CRM tool is going to free up your people to build better relationships with your customers that are face-to-face. There's confirming appointments. There's reminders for appointments. There's, hey, how was your visit? There's all of these little things that you can just do more efficiently with a good CRM program. But it ultimately allows your service advisors, your front counter assistants, even your mechanics to spend more one-on-one time, more relationship building time. So it's not a replacement for your people or what your people are doing, but it makes that relationship a lot more authentic and it makes it a lot more streamlined, takes all those little bits and pieces of noise that are in the background and removes those from your front staff.
Yeah, and that's what I was afraid of a little bit on getting to the texting part. I don't want to take away the personal connection that we have because that's what we're really strong about. Been here since 76. We have customers that come in now that their grandparents came here and their great-grandparents came here. We want to continue that and build on that. And I was a little afraid taking away some of that personal touch, but really it caused us to actually have more time to be able to, when somebody walks in or they call it to make an appointment, they're here for their service, we can actually talk with them, get to know them a little bit better, let them get to know us better, and connect actually at a deeper level if they want to. So we're just taking away some of the automated things that are not, most of the time when we called, when vehicles are ready or appointment confirmations, we're leaving a message anyway. So the text message is easier for somebody to deal with. They don't have to use their voicemail and look it up. It's easier for them to get that whenever they want them to.
Well, Chris, one of my strategies in not getting those annoying voicemails from the pharmacy telling me that my prescription's ready and that kind of stuff is I just let my voicemail box be full all the time. So then people are forced to text me. We find that texting is a lot more effective when you need to get a hold of people faster.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So trying to leave a message for somebody could sometimes be challenging when you're dealing with somebody like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't realize that was a strategy, Colleen. I thought that was just something that happened.
You let it happen. You purposely don't go listen to them.
Do you warn them on your outbound announcement if they were to leave a message, or it's always full, you don't ever delete them, you're good?
Nah, it's people who really need to get a hold of me know to shoot me a text. Hey, give me a call back. Sure. I'll call them when I can. So it mostly gets full, like I said, with those pharmacy reminders of your prescription's ready for pickup. Your prescription was ready yesterday. Your prescription was ready 2 days ago, 3 days ago. It just keeps going on and on. Those are the ones that end up leaving voicemails.
And those ones are the easiest ones to text message, I would think, as well, because it's a standard message that you're saying to almost everybody. You don't necessarily have to personalize that particular message, right? You could just be like, woohoo, your car's ready. And that's about the extent of it. But what Gerald, you had said was about the number of text messages that go out during the process. And I imagine many of them have to be personalized. It's not just a matter of, hey, your car is up on the lift. Okay. I don't know. You tell me, are you personalizing those messages or are they automated? Are they all the same?
Yeah. So there's That's a great question. And some of them, I suppose you could say they're template messages, but the software is dropping in, for instance, the customer's name. And I don't know if I should share you my screen or not, but I could show you in my example of text messages that have been going out. But hello, Gary.
Yeah. Why don't you read it to us for now? And then if you don't mind, grab a screenshot and send it to me later. And then we'll actually put that in the final production. Okay. So if you're listening to it live, you're going to want to come back out on Tuesday when we drop this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All right. So go ahead, Gerald.
Yeah, sure. Just looking through some text messages that have been sent out here to Chuck here. Hello, Chuck. Your appointment with Martin's is on 9/19/2024 at 7:50 a.m., etc. That's just a standard appointment confirmation. Hello, Glenn. Great news. Your vehicle is ready for pickup. Please call or text to make arrangements. And so customer names are getting dropped in. As long as there's a first name in there, I think that's part of personalizing it. Now, it might make sense to even randomize it and not always go through like a list of different placeholders for that message, right? So that it seems more authentic. I could see a use case for that.
And it's, as Colleen said, it's the exact same message from the pharmacy every single time. And Gerald, to your point, what if the second time that Glenn got that message, it looked a little bit different? He would go from thinking that it was automated to, wait, there's actually a person here. So I'll often mention about how if you can add it to the point where you want it to sound like the person who actually they've interacted with.
And then
there's a pushback from the AI. We already talked a little bit about the AI, right? There's a little bit of a pushback from the robots, right? If you can make it feel like a person on the other end as opposed to a computer, that's a winning strategy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Brad. And for instance, the text manager in AutoFlow allows us to just tap out a free-form text message anytime from an advisor to a customer, where it truly is a person-to-person interaction. For instance, Gary just texted in, how is the trailer coming along? Do you have any questions? And service advisor just replied, Eli is working at your trailer today, Gary. We did find frayed wiring on the left and right sides behind the tires, so we'll address that as you asked also. But no questions at this point. Thanks for checking in.
And I'm sorry, that was from the advisor, or that was from the mechanic that was working on the...
That was from the advisor.
Okay. All right. And so they're at a desktop doing that. They're not actually doing that from their cell phone, but I imagine that's possible.
It would be possible both ways, but yes, it's much, much more time effective to do it from a desktop.
Sure.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time playing around with the automations that we have through Shop Genie and looking at when we send out that reminder of your appointment is coming up, or we send out that follow-up. Shop Genie has the ability to put in the customer's first and last name, the shop's name, the year, make, and model of their car. And we played around with which one of those feels most authentic. And we found that a first and last name, hello, Gerald Martin, your 2011 BMW XWI TQ, like the more information you put in there, the less authentic it felt. And we've gotten down to a little bit more of a, hey, Gerald, your 2012 BMW is ready. And figuring out which one of those pieces work the best for your shop and for your market. We specialize in Hondas and Toyotas, so it matters to us to put the year, make, and model, but not necessarily all of the detailed information in there. We don't need to tell them what size their engine is on their car. So there's ways to play around with this CRM and make it authentic or make it feel a little bit more automated so people know you're not going to get somebody on the other end. But there's a ton of personalization that you can do, I think, with any of the CRM programs that are out there.
And it's interesting. I might be getting ahead of myself on this, but if the wrong information has been added to that field, when you're talking about deferring or circling back for declined or deferred work, if the person put in that they decided not to do the brakes, but then they make a comment about how that was a bad idea, and then you grab that field and they get a text message that said, hey, Gerald, this dummy didn't want to do his brakes. So I wonder what controls you have in place to teach your team to make sure that the correct information, because the CRM, it's a tool. As we just talked about, it's only as good as the information that's in there. What processes did you have to put in place to make sure that your team members were?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the things that comes to mind immediately is that on our AutoFlow inspection sheets, there is an area for private notes. I would say in the first place, we want to have a company culture where we wouldn't have a technician or advisor that would feel comfortable saying something degrading or demeaning anyway. So I think that behavioral thing starts on that level, right? And probably if we have that problem in our shops, we need to look at the man or the woman in the mirror, right? Because we're probably part of the problem if we have a culture that would allow demeaning of other people. But I mean, to your point, it happens out there. It's out there and it's a real problem. The area for private notes is a place maybe for to say, hey, this really is unsafe. We need to make sure the customer understands how serious this issue really is. But another safeguard that AutoFlow has built into their program is that by default, at least in its current iteration, it doesn't allow technicians the ability to directly text message customers. Now, there's a future iteration of the program that might have more of a permissions-based architecture that might actually allow that depending on what permissions a person has. But in its present state, an administrator or a service advisor has permissions to do the texting and can also have chats between them and the technician, but the technicians are not responsible for communicating with the customer. And I feel like in most shop environments, that's probably the right call, that it needs to be someone who's looking at the big picture of customer service and taking time to think about how you're going to make someone feel before you say what needs to be said, and making sure that we're saying it in a way that is kind and constructive. Even if delivering the truth is tough, we can still be nice about it, right?
So something else that you said there was interesting was there's plenty of shops where the service advisor has to talk directly to the mechanics to get what's going on. And that's not happening with you, right? It's that they're communicating about the jobs through the software as opposed to one-on-one.
Yeah, so that is true. Proper documentation on a digital inspection cuts down on a lot of the need for chatter. If the technician properly documents what his findings are, what the resolution is for the problem, and does a detailed enough job, that should take care of some of the need for talking. Now, AutoFlow does have a built-in chat where you can chat between technicians in the front of the house. And as far as I know, it's a good feature and it works well. We actually don't use that feature in our shop because we use another in-house chat program that's similar to Slack. If you're familiar with that, it's a open source self-hosted version of something that's very similar. To your question about the communication between the back of the house and the front of the house, I think it's still important that there is some of that personal touch there too. I would really, if my advisors were free enough, and it's not always this way, but I'd like if they're free enough to actually, if a technician submits an inspection and there's one of these laundry list of problems on a vehicle, right? It's really good if that service advisor could take several minutes to go out in the shop, walk around the vehicle, flashlight in hand with the technician, let the technician sell him on what needs to be done so he's in a better position, especially depending on what his industry knowledge might be, to better present to the customer. Does that make sense, Brad?
It does. Now, Colleen, you're using Protractor for your DVI. Are you doing DVIs, and are you using Protractor for that? And does Shop Genie actually allow you to push those out?
We actually use TechMetric.
Did I have that backwards?
You did. Gerald is using Protractor. We're using TechMetric. TechMetric also allows you to send out the estimate to a customer. They can approve it. Once you send them the estimate, they can just click whether they approve the work or not. And it makes it easy for people who are sitting in meetings or who are running around doing all kinds of different things. They can jump on there. They can check it from their phone. They can approve, decline, and they can just move forward very quickly. So it definitely makes the process faster in getting their cars moved through the shop.
So there's two, they hear from you from two, possibly three different phone numbers then at that point, right? Two different phone numbers for text messages, one from Shop Genie and one from TechMetric.
Yep.
And then another one when you're actually calling on them.
We weighed really carefully, like the value of the phone number that's out there. And what we have found is that most people don't really care about your phone number anymore. Certainly in our area, when people jump onto Google, I've been seeing my same dentist for 10 years now. I've never gone anywhere else. We're a family of 6. We're in the dentist all the time. And still, when I need to call them, I Google their name and I hit call from their Google business profile. I don't have their number saved. It's not a thing. And the phone number that we call them from, some people have that saved. With smart technology now, our name often pops up on that anyway. And we make sure that when we text them directly from TechMetric, that it says, this is Shannon Family Automotive, or hi, this is Eric, and then Shop Genie, we primarily use for more of those automated texts. So it's a reminder that their appointment is coming up the next day. We do a 24-hour notice. 3 days after their visit, we send a text message that says, hey, just checking in. How was everything? And then 5 days after their visit, we text a review request to them. There's still a lot that Shop Genie does that we have not yet tapped into. They have text message blasts that you can send out. They can do email blasts. We can send out reminders for declined work. We have not even gotten into that stuff yet. But I think probably the number one feature that we like the best with Shop Genie is it gave people the ability to schedule appointments online. And I could go in and I could customize exactly what options they see for what kind of appointment they want to schedule. So there's just a generic, but then in the summertime, I also run an option to schedule an appointment for a road trip inspection. So get your car checked out before you go take your summer road trip. And for some people, that's a 2-hour drive. And for other people, it's going all the way across the country. And it just sparks their idea a little bit. In the fall, like right around this time, I'll usually put an option up at the top of the appointment options to get your charging system checked. Hey, cooler weather, your car's slow to start, let's check your battery. And allowing people more of those options to schedule their appointment instead of just I know I need to take my car to the mechanic. I guess I'll just call and ask for a price on something. No, you don't need a price on brakes, you need a brake inspection. And so just prompting people a little bit to walk them through that process. So the phone number, circling back around to your original question, is the phone number doesn't really matter. Okay. People aren't paying attention to that anymore.
Flinched actually out of all of that made sense. And I flinched mostly at the idea of cooler weather in California.
Tim, we're in Northern California. So this week it's in the 70s, which is really something. But in the summertime, we're up in the hundreds. So this feels like fall weather for us.
My goodness. Okay. Yeah. All right, Chris, are you guys, if you're just adopting hits or the CRM aspects of hits, you're probably not using the DVI, or are you using the DVI function?
We are not. No, okay. That's where we're pushing toward.
That's one of the directions you're headed.
Okay. The DVI's done, yeah.
Okay. And so right now you touched on 2 different automated text messages, right? Your appointment coming and your car's done.
There's other options of cars in the shop, cars getting worked on. We decided not to implement those because when we're doing tires and it gets an alignment, or we're doing oil change and it's getting brakes. So it's going through different techs that are doing different work. I think most people don't really care what's going on while it's at the shop, just as long as you're doing the job and they know when it's ready. So yeah, we're just confirmation and then the ready. And then of course, whenever we have issues, vehicle, we find problems, we can text out to that customer. This is what we found. You want to fix this, or call us with any question. So yeah, we can direct follow up while the vehicle's here with any kind of problem as well.
And I imagine that's a case-by-case basis as far as this one's easy, right? I can send a message, you need new brakes. It's time, right?
Yeah.
Or versus the water pump is failing and you're like, what? That's a whole different, I don't know. Are you actually, there's no automation with that. Yeah, it's a case-by-case basis that you're doing, right?
It is, yeah. It's a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, we're bigger problems that we find. We still phone call. We still like to talk to them, but if somebody's in getting tires and hey, your tires are wearing unevenly, recommend alignment. Would you like us to go ahead and take care of that today for you? Or they're here for brakes and hey, I need to put some rotors on this thing too. Are you okay with that? It's just little add-ons that will through the text. Bigger jobs that still call.
Now, Chris,
Chris, you brought up an interesting point that customers don't really expect to hear from what step their car is in the process necessarily. While it's in the shop, they drop it off, they expect an update, and then they want to know when it's done at the end of the day. And so for one of the things that we found when we switched to being able to have platforms to text customers or email customers is it's really important when they're checking in to have that conversation with them of, do you prefer a phone call, or do you prefer a text message, or do you prefer an email? And then just confirming that we have the right information in the system. A lot of people will tell us right at the counter, oh yeah, just text me. That would be great. And that makes it a lot easier later.
Yeah, I think that check-in and check-out are probably the 2 most important things that ever happen in a. When they check in, you have to have expectations of when you need it back. Letting them know that, like, hey, we want to take care of all your problems in one shot. Come back 2 or 3 times. Confirming you got the right information for you, the phone number, how can we get in touch with you. And then when they come back to check out, going over, hey, this is what you came in with. This is what we've done. We've taken care of all the A, B, C, D that you listed out for us, got it done in this time frame within the price that we quoted, and making sure that they don't have any other questions or want to set up anything else for other vehicles. Those 2 processes are number 1 and number 2. And number 3 really is getting the car working. You can't work on a car without knowing issues that they're going to have. Oh yeah, by the way, I've got a squeaking noise that's been going on for a couple of weeks in the right rear. Yeah, can you check that? it's getting those questions out and getting that information in and then communicating it with the text and then just
You're the newest at the implementation of the CRM. How much employee pushback have you gotten from this? I like the paper. I like the different way. Go ahead.
For the most part, when we first started looking around, tried to involve my sales because they were going to be using it the most. Involve them in, hey, look at this demo. What do y'all think? Getting them to buy in on the product and the process. Since they started looking at it, they're like, oh man, that's really neat. I like this part of this one. They actually became a little more excited about it. When they understood that they had a little input. It wasn't me going out, this is what we're going to, don't matter what you say. These are our options. Take a look at it. Here's the thing. What do you like? You don't like? And when we sat down and we hammered out that we're going to use the HITS program, checking in with them every day, making sure, how's the process going? Oh, we had this problem. I'll call right away. We figure out, oh, okay, we hit this wrong. We did something wrong on this process. All right, let's date that. And it keeps them in the loop and keeps them involved in the process. So I haven't really had any kickback at all from.
All right. Colleen, how about you? When you implemented the new CRM for Shop Genie, did people were like, I like the old one
no, we didn't. But at the same time that we were switching over to Shop Genie, we had a lot of turnover in our staff. The growth that we've gone through in the last 18 months, a lot of the staff we had last summer did not agree with the path that we were taking, or they just weren't able to grow with us. They were very comfortable where they were at. And so I guess the answer is yes. I guess there was a lot of pushback with a lot of the changes that we made. We were with Mitchell and we switched to TechMetric, and going from the bolt-on DVIs to the TechMetric DVIs, there was certainly some pushback with that. But because people get comfortable, use the same tool to do the same job every time. And even if that tool is completely worn out and you jump on the tool truck and get a new one, it just doesn't feel the same. That wrench or that ratchet, it just doesn't feel quite the same. And anytime you're going to change something, it's a little uncomfortable for a little while, but that was our TechMetric jump. And then by the time we switched over to Shop Genie in December and January of this year, we had a whole new staff. So then it was just a matter of training new people on this is what we do and this is what our expectations are.
Gerald, did you reboot your staff when you rebooted the software program?
We went through some changes. We were in a situation where we've had a couple that have moved on over the last several years and a few new ones that have joined our staff. We haven't had a complete changeover. I would say that probably with some of the changes that went down in the business, some of it probably comes back to some of the things like Colleen mentioned earlier about simply necessary changes if you're going to scale for a little larger production base eventually. And you have people that aren't comfortable or would like if it stayed the way it always was. So in that sense, yes. But I think that our staff really did try to give a fair shake to the new software programs. And Protractor in particular has probably a steeper learning curve than what TechMetric does. And I would say that it's a powerful software, but it takes time to learn how to utilize the power. Whereas TechMetric's claim to fame, I think, is that it's also a powerful software, but it's really simple to learn to use, very intuitive. It's not that one is good and one isn't. It's just that they're very different products. With regard to AutoFlow, more like TechMetric in that sense that it's easy to learn to use. To learn to do a good quality inspection is very intuitive, very simple, and getting better all the time. So I would say that no, we don't have an issue with pushback so much as I question, are we doing everything we could do with regard to implementation and with regard to CRM here, right? And what does CRM really stand for? Maybe it's, as my friend Craig O'Neill says over at AutoFlow, it's a client relationship instead of customer retention. So if that's what it is, then I really wonder if aren't we better served perhaps by some semi-automation of processes as opposed to full automation? For instance, we talked about this thing of canned responses, and after a while, they just sound canned, right? They sound like I've seen this before, how many times? And so ways to mix that up, perhaps, but also ways to reach back out to customers in a really organic, like the service advisor is actually making the contact type of thing. And perhaps even Chris with his setup is in a good position to do some of that, where, for instance, if you have a client that declined some work, maybe there were financial reasons they couldn't do everything that needs to be done. It could be as simple as keeping a folder of those estimates and a folder for each week, and then going to the ones that are 5 or 6 weeks old and pulling them back out and either making a phone call or just sending a personal message to that customer and saying, hey, it was really enjoyed working with you 6 weeks ago when we serviced your Honda. I know at that time there were some things that you wanted to do, but it didn't make sense financially. Just circling back around to see how things are now. Can I help you with those concerns? Are there any other issues that you're having or that anyone in your family is having that we can help you with? And just open some of those conversations. I feel like that perhaps if we become too reliant on full automation, we can soothe our conscience by saying, okay, we did our job, right? But did we really help people?
Gerald, we got a response from a customer. Last week, we sent them how was your visit? And he came back saying, actually, my visit was really lousy, but nobody reads these anyway, so it doesn't matter. Wow, okay, so we did read it anyway, and we were able to reach out to him and call him and, hey, wait, what happened here? And it was some miscommunication of timelines. Wife came to pick up the car, it wasn't ready, all these things. But just the fact that we saw it and that we responded to it really meant a lot to him. And so even though we do a certain amount of automation, having a person on the other end to catch those responses, to reply back to people, how was your visit? Everything was great. Oh, we're so glad to hear that. You can't automate some of that, but with Shop Genie, they capture Google reviews for us, which is really nice. They have an AI feature. It's called Jasmine that will reply to your Google reviews. I found it really time consuming to go through and do those, but it matters for your Google ranking when you're worrying about your SEO or you're doing Google ads. Replying to those reviews really makes a difference in where you fall. And so being able to utilize Jasmine to send back a reply to those reviews just saved a ton of time for me. And I'll usually maybe once a month or so, I'll go back in and I'll look at the reviews and I'll have Jasmine reply to them. And if I don't like a reply, I click the button and it rewrites it. It's a chat GPT kind of thing. And so I'll have her keep doing it until it feels right to me. If anybody wanted to check out our reviews on Google Ads or on our Google page, shannonfamilyautomotive.com, you can see a lot of those reviews and you could probably tell which ones are replied to by Jasmine and the older ones from a year or two ago that were an actual person replying to it. But it feels nice to people that there's a touch to it that feels authentic and feels genuine.
I wonder if Jasmine would be willing to do a typo. So one of the suggestions I heard about a week ago to make it look authentic and not like a computer is to occasionally insert a typo.
In my past life, I was a high school English teacher, so I can't do it. I can't put in those intentional typos. I'm correcting her grammar. Nope, that doesn't sound right.
Feel free to mix up there and there. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. That's nice. Okay. All right. So, Gerald, are you using the CRM for marketing? You touched on it already. You're with the deferred work folder, and I believe that's actually a feature inside of AutoFlow, right? That's not a paper file. You're actually making sure that your schedule doesn't get soft, I would imagine. Don't have as many appointments next week. So now you're reaching out to the deferred work folder. Is that how that goes down?
So there's actually it's this great feature in AutoFlow that's not a new feature. It's been in the software since we started using it 3 years ago, but they call it the rainy day folder. And what's really good about it is that on an AutoFlow inspection, backing up just a step, on an AutoFlow digital vehicle inspection, there's this notion that when the vehicle leaves the shop, item on the inspection is either been addressed or is left unaddressed. And I think they use that terminology because there's more than one way for something to be addressed. If the customer says, no, don't replace the wiper blades, but I have a new set in my other vehicle that's supposed to be installed on that one, so I have that taken care of, that item can be marked addressed. We're not going to try to bring up the wiper blades again if we know that's handled. So that's where it starts, is on the inspection report, making sure when the vehicle leaves that things that have been accounted for and are taken care of are marked as addressed, and things that are open issues are left unaddressed. That populates an area of the program that's called the rainy day folder. And you can go back into the rainy day folder and really simply resend that inspection. It basically gives a second life to that inspection. It allows you to use it again, and you can send the inspection back to the customer and say, hey, at your visit 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, whatever, there were some things that needed attention. Here is the report that you can put back in front of them again. And they'll be able to open that inspection report and they will see what was taken care of and what was not.
And why it matters.
and why it matters. And that actually, you can turn that on full automatic, but we do not do that. I prefer, and I actually enjoy sending those messages and thinking of something unique or specific to the customer for each one so that they know that there's no way that this could have been generated by anyone other than a human, somebody who knows them or knows their situation. And it's just an opportunity in a very low pressure environment, put that information in front of a client again without being too pushy. So that's a really strong feature. Now, AutoFlow does have a complete marketing module as well. And that goes more to, I think, what Colleen had mentioned earlier about a text blast or an email blast. We have been doing some of that, I would say, very carefully. So I have gotten maybe just a little bit gun shy on the thing of large campaign blasts because it feels like I get too many unsubscribes, right? When I send out a text message and the first 20 responses to 500 text messages are stop. And then I go through them and I realize that half of those were maybe out-of-state customers that were driving past on the interstate, had a breakdown, and we worked for them or whatever. They're not even local, so it doesn't matter to them.
It still hurts your pride, though, a little bit, doesn't it? It sure gets mine. Those stop messages kill me.
I know, it's painful. It's really painful. I don't like when somebody replies stop. It makes me feel bad every time.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I feel like there is a place for that kind of marketing. But another thing that is perhaps stronger with is that there's now a feature that allows us to set up basically a drip that looks and says, send a message to a customer who we have not seen for, let's say, 10 months. And that you can make really personalized. You can say, hey, John, this is Gerald from Martin's Auto Service. We noticed that we haven't seen you for nearly a year. Just wanted to drop by and see, is everything okay? And then if they reply, you can interact right away with that message, and it's seamless. You told it, gave it the message you intended to give in the first place, and you can reply in line with it. So I think that type of thing, probably overall, you're going to get fewer unsubscribes to than what you will to a blast that, hey, we're having a tire sale this week or something.
Yeah. Gerald, one of the things that we ran into with that is that when we switched to TechMetric in August of 2023, everybody who has been in from August of 23 until now is marked as a first-time customer because it's the first time they've arrived in our shop through TechMetric. They might have 5 or 6 or 10 years of history with our shop and it's in TechMetric, but TechMetric is noticing that they're a first-time customer. And for our CRM, we've had to be real careful to curate that and pay attention to what it is. But last winter, I did a lot of text blasts in October, November, December. The first one I sent out, amazing response. Could not believe how many people replied, the amount of business we got from it. That was great. And it was a little bit less and a little bit less and a little bit less. Yeah. And so I have not sent out a text blast in probably 6 to 8 months because I don't want our customers to get saturated with that.
Chris, and when you do it, the more you can pull.
Blasts?
Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. I was just curious if Chris has used those at all.
Yeah, I have not used any text blasts yet. And on that point, yeah, I get texts from things I've signed up for online or places I've went. And when I get one every week and it's the same thing, 4 weeks in, I'm like, I'm unsubscribed to that. But it's the saturation of it and the different messages that you could put on it would go a long way. If it says something different, it's about something different. Not every week, it's once every 2 months or something.
I was going to say that. If there's a way to send out that blast, but then reference the fact that they haven't had their tires replaced at your shop since X date, then you're talking about new tires, right? It makes it seem like it's actually a little bit more on a one-to-one as opposed to an obvious blast. That's part of it, right? If we could send out that marketing blast to make it feel like it's actually a one-to-one communication, even if it isn't, then they'll be slower to unsubscribe because it'll be more to them. But now, Chris, now that you've heard the pain of people getting that stop messages, are you going to be less likely or more likely to unsubscribe to people in the future?
I'm already easy on just hitting stop because I know that person is not looking at it. These are companies, big box companies that it goes out to everybody. Nobody's even hitting a button. It's just, I don't feel like I'm hurting anybody's feelings. I don't think.
See, I'm on the other side of that coin. I've actually unsubscribed from family group messages. I'm like, I don't need to hear this anymore. So that goes over well at Thanksgiving. But
Yeah, to that point of remaining authentic, I just have AutoFlow's marketing module open on my other screen right now. They have been doing some serious improvements on the marketing side of it. And there's actually a place here in the campaigns where you can add an alternative message, and it looks like you can just click and keep on adding alternates so that you could create several different approaches that are all authentic. They're all going to use the customer's first name, the service advisor name that they had at their last visit. If you want it to be impersonating that service advisor, just like maybe the work done on your Honda went well, just avoiding that extreme level of detail that makes it obvious that this has been machine generated. I think that the more that we would use authenticity in our messaging, no matter whether it's in messages that we hand type or templates that we create, and rotating that, keeping things fresh, is going to make a difference in coming across as caring about what we do and not letting things become stale.
Yeah.
I also think
All right,
being authentic, a lot of that comes in our face-to-face interaction. If you're authentic in that, that's the person they get to know. When they get just every once in a while, they get something that maybe seems to be not quite as authentic. Oh, they're just trying to get back in touch with me or something. That face-to-face is where hopefully what they're remembering you.
Yeah. And to that point, Chris, even just sending a text message, not trying to approach them with a previous need or sell anything, but even a message to say, yeah, it's been several months since we've seen you. How is everything? And just open a conversation. Customer might say, everything's been fine. I haven't needed anything, but I think I am getting close to an oil change on the Toyota. And it jogs their memory. But it's the relationship management. How are things going for your granddaughter that has cancer or whatever? If you can really get personal, like that message isn't going to get an unsubscribe. What you're doing there is you're building trust, you're building relationship and rapport with that person.
Yeah. And the key there is that authenticity, being honest and sincere with that level of how's your family doing. You better care or don't send that message at all.
Line between keeping your name in front of them, keeping them thinking about you as their provider, and then taking up too much of their headspace and becoming a nuisance. You just want to be always in the back of their mind as if I need something, this is who I'm going to call for it. But you don't want to become a pain in their ass that you're, sorry, Brad. I told you I wouldn't swear. I've done really good.
You're fine. There's a checkbox that I write, this is not for kids. So it's
okay, good.
Fine.
That's a valid point too, as far as I think that the communication we have with people does need to be in the context with what amount of relationship do we have with them. There's going to be some customers over time that are going to become personal friends probably, and that you really do develop that more of a deeper connection with, and then others that you don't. And so the communication, when it comes to that authenticity, to a point, the stuff that we are hand generating, like the one-off messages, that becomes the responsibility of the person sending them to be thinking in terms of what is my relationship with this person? Is it appropriate?
Yeah. All right. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's actually go and talk a little bit whether or not anyone is using the reporting functionality from this. A lot of the CRMs out there, they can tell you your volume for the past week and whether or not you're on track and compare it to previous periods. Are we using any of the reporting? What kind of data are you pulling to determine the shop's performance from your CRM? Gerald, you're nodding your head. How about if you start us off?
I'm nodding my head because there's a great amount of reporting in AutoFlow and we're really not using very much of it.
Okay.
There's reports in AutoFlow, everything from workflow reports to sales reports, marketing reports, messaging reports, messages that were sent, delivered, how many emails were opened. The truth is that for somebody that really enjoys digging into the really fine details of reporting, it's really all there. I would say that perhaps the point we are in our business, there are bigger fish to fry, if you will. And I'm not saying the reporting isn't important. It's just that we're dealing with the challenge of really needing additional help in the shop, short on staff. Mm-hmm. There's other things that are probably taking up some of that headspace, like Colleen mentioned before. But it's all there. The reporting is there. One place I do use it is when we send one of those more of a blast type campaign, email deliverability is there and how many people opened it, how many responses there were to it. And it's very well reported and all readily available.
Okay. And so any kind of shop performance as far as car counts or those types of things, or accepted, the amount of work that was accepted versus deferred, that's all in Protractor for you then, not in the AutoFlow side?
Actually, it would be some of that would be available in both sides, but we are primarily pulling that from Protractor.
Got it. How about you, Colleen? You're using the TechMetric for those types of reports?
We do. Yeah, we exclusively use TechMetric for those. I know that ShopGenie has some of that reporting in there. I have not dug into it or looked at it. We use a lot of the end-of-day reports in TechMetric. We're looking at advisor sales specific to advisor. We're looking at technician hours. And those are things that we're looking at on a daily basis. The reporting that ShopGenie has to offer. Right now, we're using ShopGenie. They host our website. We'll use it for scheduling and for those texts, the automated text messaging, but that's all we're using it for. Actually, they did start doing it, Google Ads. So we've started using ShopGenie for our Google AdWords as well. But as far as the reporting goes, I haven't dug into it. I've got my calendars back here that I use.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Very good. How about you, Chris? Are you leveraging any of the reports and hits?
Yeah, thankfully with Hit Digital, it's connected to our POS system. So it's the same reports, just right. Obviously now with the digital side of it, we can see what kind of communications we're having. But within the Hits Digital, already pre-made reports you can run. You can also make any kind of report you want. A lot of options on making up reports of certain KPIs you're wanting to look at. Or this month, I really want to focus on brake service. How are we doing on our brake service? Are we selling well? And this month you can pull up a report, kind of put it on your platform on the page and see it and track it. So yeah, I am using those. It's not something that I'm tracking every single day, but yeah, it's a good pull up the board and I see, oh wow, we dropped off over here. So we can maybe have some conversations in the shop about why we're not selling any air filters this week. Actually look at them.
It was about your past experiences with support and those types of things, and how with AutoFlow it's been great. You've even talked at one point, I believe, about putting out there different feature sets for different platforms. What's next? What do you hope to see your CRM to evolve? What features are you looking for that you aren't currently getting? Colleen, you also talked about how everyone had a bunch of different pieces and you went to with ShopGenie because it was newer and it seemed to have all of it. But now that you've used it, probably have some new features as well. Who wants to start on, do you have any brainstorms on what's next for these CRMs? Go ahead, Gerald. It looks like you're thinking something.
For me, it's continuous innovation is where it's at. And I would say it's an unusual week that I do not send off some form of an email or feature request to the AutoFlow team. And sometimes it's just something that I just thought of. Just for instance, this is a low priority feature request, but I thought of something this morning and sent it off to them. The AutoFlow has a great feature where if a vehicle is in for an inspection, something is not marked addressed, the next time it comes in for an inspection, those same findings from the last time pre-populate the inspection, but they're all date tagged. That says, so that it's clear that they were findings from an earlier date. And this morning I just put in a request saying, hey, could we maybe have a reset button on the inspection sheet if the sheet has gotten cluttered because it has a lot of findings on it from previous inspections, and maybe there's just one thing that we want to report today. Would there be a way that instead of going and simply making those areas not visible, which is not hard to do now, with a couple of clicks or some sort of a safety mechanism so you don't erase a sheet accidentally, that we could just quickly reset that form? I'm not expecting that feature will be in the software tomorrow or even next month. And somebody else may have had an idea that already answers that concern, but in a different way than what my idea was. So I think really some of it is idea productivity and coming up with ideas for these development teams of how their software can be better, getting that in front of the development team, realizing that I'm not the only person who has ideas, and the things that are important to me might not be important for everyone else. So not everything that I send over to the team at AutoFlow or Protractor or whoever is necessarily going to become part of their software, but there are some ideas that will pick up, become features and benefit lots of other people. So yeah, there's things that we're in the process of working on with the AutoFlow team right now that I think are highly probable will become parts of the next iteration and next generation of their software, which is presently being developed. And I love being a part of it. I love being part of a team that is actually responsive, and some of the dialogue that we have is really high quality stuff. Being able to go back and forth on some ideas. And even for me to realize that, hey, somebody else has thought this thing through and there's a better way to do it than my idea.
Nice. How about you, Colleen?
The team over at Shop Genie they're incredibly responsive. Their chat feature and their email, they get back to you so quickly on questions and concerns that we might be having. The only feature that I can think that Shop Genie, and I know they're in the process of improving this in their software, would be the ability to make more specific campaigns to send out. So in TechMetric, we're able to put a job category on everything. So every step of the process has a different job category, filters or breaks or suspension or whatever. And it'd be pretty cool to be able to put together a campaign that's only for people who have declined suspension work, something like that, to be able to really narrow it down. When we first started with them, you couldn't narrow it down at all. It was either your entire database or nothing. And boy, talk about a lot of unsubscribes on that one. That was a tough week with how many people didn't want our messages anymore. But it was 13 years worth of phone numbers that we had in there. Since then, they've added in different features. You can clarify now if you want to send it to people that you haven't seen in a year, who have a particular average repair order, or who have a lifetime spend of X amount, or how many visits per year. So they're coming along in being able to clarify the type of campaign that you can send out. But I'd like to see them continue working on that. Other than that, I think that Shop Genie has been better than I expected them to be. Coming from using Bolt-On, there was My Shop Manager, and there was another one. They had the exact same screen. It was hard for us to even tell them apart when I first stepped in, was trying to figure it out. But a lot of them felt really clunky. And compared to all of that, Shop Genie feels so smooth and so fast. It's going from driving your grandma's Corolla to driving a Corvette is really what it feels like. So
interesting. Quite the compliment. Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious, if I have unsubscribed from your text messages and then I bring my car to you, are you going to be able, does the system let you text me to let me know that it's ready for me to pick up? Or because I've unsubscribed, I can't get anything from you?
We can still text people through TechMetric because that's more of a direct text message, whereas the unsubscribed is going to be for the automated text messages that people would get through Shop Genie.
So you wouldn't be able to text me through Shop Genie. You'd have to do it through the other platform.
So
that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up, Brad, because I was just headed there as well with what Colleen was mentioning. And to the point that we discussed earlier about the unsubscribes, AutoFlow within their program uses two different texting. The one number that they use is for marketing, and the other is for transactional messaging. So that it is, if somebody gets that email or that text blast where you were offering that the free car wash with an oil change or the whatever, and they said stop to it, that's going to stop the marketing messages, but it's not going to stop those visits, messages related to a visit. So they'll still going to automatically get that confirmation text message when they create an appointment. And
interesting.
That none of that they'd have to put in stop a second time for that number to stop those.
Okay.
That's an interesting idea, Gerald. I'm going to have to check with Shop Genie on that one because they are launching a phone system, a voice over internet phone that's going to integrate with their CRM. And I wonder if the phone numbers are going to be a piece of that with what number shows up for those text messages. That's interesting. I'm taking lots of notes. I don't know if anybody else listening to this podcast is taking notes, but as I'm talking to these two guys, there's a lot to learn here.
Good. I like to hear that because that's actually the hope, is that not just the three of you, but also those who are listening are getting ideas and are thinking these things through. And we're still in the early phases of trying to launch a private Facebook group where we could potentially continue this conversation. If you have an epiphany in 3 days, to be able to go back and post inside that Facebook group so that we can continue this conversation. So like I said, that's still a work in progress, but that's the direction of that private Facebook group. And I'll put a link out in the show notes and I'll make sure that you three also get that link so you can jump in there. But that's also a good segue to just asking, are there any questions that you were hoping to ask earlier, but the conversation quickly turned and you never got it back around to asking it? Chris, do you have any thoughts on you're the newest at implementing the CRM? We've got two more with a few more years experience on implementing the CRM. Do you have any thoughts or questions about what you might be facing in the next 6 months to a year?
Yeah. When implementing the DVI part of the process, right now we're just implementing stuff through our sales account. They're very on board on doing this. So I'm worried about going into the shop and saying, all right, we're going to start doing some DVIs, visual vehicle inspections, getting them on board with this. Is it something that you particularly got a couple people to start doing and they started teaching everybody else? Did you have a specific trainer in the shop? How did that go for y'all?
DVIs are such a critical part of what we do in our business, but we have two different levels of inspection that we offer. So we have a courtesy inspection that our technicians fill out for every oil change. Every car that comes in is getting a courtesy inspection. And then we also offer a complete inspection. The courtesy inspection usually takes our technicians about 20 to 30 minutes to complete, and we don't pay them for that time. Our guys are flat rate. They go through, they take pictures, and they put in canned responses or they type in their own responses. Our complete inspection is about twice the size of our courtesy inspection, and we do pay our guys an hour for that. We don't charge customers for our complete inspection. And within our coaching group, there's a lot of controversy about that. We definitely take a hit on our effective labor rate because we're paying our technicians, but not billing our customers. Paying our guys to do it certainly made a huge difference in their attitude. They would rather do a complete inspection than a courtesy inspection all day long. But it did start with having somebody get really good at it and know what it is and understand the value of it. And probably every quarter or so, I'll pull up reports and actually show them to the guys. I monitor them all the time, but I'll share the reports with the technicians and look how many inspections you did. And look what this did for your average repair order. Look, when you take this many more pictures over that many more pictures, look what it did for your close ratio. And getting them familiar with those terms that we're looking at in the office of, look, when you do an inspection, when you do this digital inspection, customers buy what you're recommending. And isn't that what you want? Doesn't that get you more hours? And they've really started to see that direct correlation. When we bring in a new technician, now it's just a matter of culture. And we've had plenty of new guys who will grumble about it. They don't like taking the time to do it. They don't understand the point. And it's just teaching them about this is how we do things, but also this is the benefit to you. Because ultimately everybody's looking for why would this be good for me? And helping our technicians to see that and our advisors to see that has been really huge.
Oh, so you don't give them a list of other shops in the area that would rather hire them. Gerald, do you have any thoughts on that? You want to chime in?
So
Colleen,
with regard to the process of implementing a DVI, the tech buy-in is really important. And so we also run a flat rate shop. And there was a time when we also did not pay the technicians anything for their labor for doing that courtesy inspection. And we have changed that. And Colleen, it might be the best marketing investment you could make to just allocate 0.3 of an hour or something to them for those courtesy inspections, because if they feel better about it and they realize they're actually getting something for it, it's all in their head. The 0.3 of an hour is not the issue, but to them it is. And so we started doing that. And I would say, I guess, that we maybe have more like 3 levels of inspection, because there's certain things that are required with an oil change service that they need to do as part of the service, whether we're calling it an inspection or not. They have to check fluid levels. They have to set tire pressure, etc. But when it comes to that courtesy inspection, we are paying our technicians for that. And then we have a more nearly comprehensive inspection. I guess I'll say that we call it our signature vehicle health assessment. We sell that inspection for $180, and customers love to buy it. With where you are, Colleen, you could probably sell an inspection to your customers, marketed right, for just under $300, pay your techs 2 hours of labor to do it. The techs would love it. And here's one thing that I can pretty much guarantee you is that your ARO on those tickets, it'll probably be double what the rest of your tickets are, because there actually are customers that want to spend for that. It's crazy. Since we started offering a paid inspection, we actually have a shop, or I guess it's a dealership that deals in kind of high-end repossessed vehicles that's maybe an hour and a half away or so. It's not necessarily even the goal of our business whatsoever, but they've brought in these Lamborghinis and Porsches and rather crazy supercars. And on some of these vehicles, we've done inspections that we sold for between $1,000 and $1,500 with an incredible level of detail, because the buyer for this vehicle might, for instance, live in Germany or wherever, and they want to have an unbiased third party go over this vehicle and really provide quality workup of what's good and what needs attention. So some of this it gets onto a whole nother level, right? When you start doing that kind of stuff. But my point is, don't hesitate to offer a paid inspection to your customers, because when you're talking something that takes a tech a couple of hours to do, it's completely reasonable to offer that as a paid service. Even if I have no idea where you, in California, if you're at $200 an hour or something, your labor rate might easily be double what it is where we are here in the southern tip of Illinois. But even if you offered a subsidized rate for a paid inspection, I think it could be phenomenal for your business to do that.
Yeah, when we switched over to Shop Genie and online booking, we do have an option on there just for a complete inspection. And so if that's what customers want to come in for specifically, a road trip inspection or a complete inspection, if they're booking an appointment for that, then we do charge them. We have other criteria, though, for our complete inspections where, if it's been over 20,000 miles since we've done a complete inspection, or it's been more than 2 years, then we require our technicians to do a complete inspection on it. And in that case, that's more of an in-house policy. So we don't want to charge people, but we also offer a pre-purchase inspection. That one's really phenomenal. We do charge for that one. And that one, giving somebody pictures of the underside of the vehicle, the suspension, the fluids, before they're able to purchase a car, kind of like you're talking about with the high-end dealership. A lot of people, that just makes a huge difference to get to see that. We get a lot of great reviews from people saying, "Oh, I love your transparency. Thank you for showing me pictures of my car. That makes such a difference." So it helps build that relationship as well.
We've mentioned a couple of times about the scheduling of appointments from the website, and it's tied into your CRM, or it's part of your CRM. What would you say to shop owners who are afraid to allow their customers to schedule their own appointments?
Don't be scared.
Yeah, I would say to those shop owners that I was in your camp at one time. I thought that there's no way I would surrender control of the schedule to a customer, right? But the reality is that we surrender control of our schedule to our customers every single day that we're open for business. If that vehicle comes in and it's got a leaking water pump, grinding brakes, or a failing wheel bearing, we're going to ask that customer to leave the vehicle for repairs. The scheduling is an imperfect science anyway, right? We're never going to get it right. In the end, those things usually always work out. I think the one thing maybe we have to be a little careful about is, how many oil changes we have, for instance, at one time, if your shop offers services, which we do. But yeah, there was a time when I would have been really reluctant to do it, but turn it on and you'll find out that it's definitely something that you can work with.
And most of them have features that prevent you from scheduling, "I'm going to wait and you're going to replace my engine." Like there are features to block that from happening.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right on.
One of the things I really like about Shop Genie is you can block out the schedules. The way we have our criteria locked down, customers can only schedule between 7 a.m. and noon. So everybody has the expectation that it's a morning drop off. We only take so many waiting oil changes. You can only schedule an appointment to wait for an oil change or a decline fluid service. People can request a shuttle. People can request a loaner car. And we can limit the number of appointments that are available during a day. Because Shop Genie integrates with TechMetric. It sees our TechMetric schedule. So that's just the schedule that we run off of. Though Shop Genie does have an appointment list on their side as well. At first, I was limiting at 30 appointments a day. And then I was like, forget that. Let's do 60. So we can take in as many appointments as we need and then figure it out from there. But we're a pretty high production shop in that way. So if we can't get it done, we'll just work faster and harder.
Okay. All right. So a good percentage of your appointments are scheduled now online. A lot of your customers like that feature.
Yeah, but we do have it set where they cannot schedule a same day appointment. So it has to be one day out.
Sure.
So like at this time, it's 10:30 out here in California on Wednesday morning. So people can still schedule an appointment for Thursday, but most people are going to be scheduling for Friday. And Fridays are crazy for us. So we allow fewer appointments on Friday than we do, say, on Monday or Tuesday.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and AutoFlow's appointment scheduler it's really similar to what Colleen described in that it's shop management system schedule aware. It is tied together, and it can also feed in. Of course, all the appointments that are in the shop management system show up in AutoFlow as well. And that's not just a protractor feature. That's with TechMetric or their other integrations, I believe, would be the same way. So again, it's not going to permit, I don't think, scheduling one appointment right on top of another time slot.
Chris, have you started using the appointment scheduler?
So in HITS, we have it turned on the online. We just changed over from having a paper pad to actually having it on the computer. So yeah, baby steps, I think is what
welcome to the new millennium. This is going to be a game changer for you.
Right. Yeah. It was so funny having 3 or 4 people in the counter and somebody has to set an appointment like, where's it at? Where's it at? Oh, no, you got to grab it from somebody else. So yeah, it's amazing how well this worked. Should have started this 10 years ago.
Okay. And I don't even know if actually a website enabled appointment scheduler or not. I'm on their website right now and I'm peeking it around.
Yeah. Okay. They may not.
That's interesting. And what are you going to do with the clip? Do you have like a plan? Are you going to just have a bonfire?
I think a bonfire is going to be nice.
Okay, good.
We do have online appointments that people can schedule through our website. So our website's through NetDriven. So it's just emailed into us and then we confirm.
Right. It's on an official time slot.
Correct.
Yep. I get it. All right. So what other things let's start to wrap up here, but are there any other topics around the CRM that we would cover that we didn't get to that we should be bringing up?
I feel like we've covered it pretty thoroughly. I think probably my biggest takeaway from this morning is Gerald called it client relationship marketing instead of customer retention marketing. And I think that's
maybe client relationship management. What Craig calls it.
That's it.
Okay,
that's
good.
Right.
Management.
Client relationship management. Right.
And that's a mindset shift that'll make a really big difference to look at it that way. Instead of a marketing piece, it's a relationship management piece.
Good. What else? Anything else? All right. Then the last question I have for all of you is topics. We talked a couple times, Gerald, you're in the process of actually looking for more staff. We've actually had a couple of those episodes in the past talking about how to recruit top talent, how to keep top talent. And so you can check those out if you're also in that same boat as Gerald. But I'm curious to hear from you. What topics would you like to hear on this show in the near future? Is there anything that jumps out of you as something that might be worth talking about?
You touched on, Brad, a little bit about KPIs, the numbers that are in the reporting that are available in the CRM. There's a really phenomenal program out there called OctoRocket. It's spelled like OK to Rocket. And that's a really great system that helps you manage all of your shop numbers. I think it'd be great to have a Garage Grit episode about what are the numbers that you look at and how do those numbers impact your daily operations or your plans are coming into a slow season? How do you use those numbers to overcome those challenges?
Okay. All right. And how honest are you with those numbers? I've heard various shops talk about how they have this great scheduling, or they look at the deferred work and they have hardly any deferred work, and only to, lo and behold, find out that any deferred work has actually been deleted from the system so that their percentage of completion is great. So that goes back to the data integrity that we talked about earlier, making sure that you have good information getting into these tools. But I like that. So what KPIs are you using for your shop, and how does it actually affect your day-to-day shop? And as you said, what about the soft seasons? What else? No ideas, Chris or Gerald?
I know that one of my weaknesses through my shop is communication. Something on shop communication and even customer communication. What have people done that's gotten over weaknesses of communication? Because a lot of my shop employees, at least ones I've had, communication is like their biggest weakness. They love working on cars. They do not want to communicate very well. How can we get them out of that bubble to communicate? Because obviously without communication, we just can't get on the same page. We can't communicate everything to the customer. So communication is a big thing to get the shop to working full.
Okay, good. How about you, Gerald? Any thoughts?
That's a really good one, Chris, that thing of communication. One thing that kind of came up a couple of times, maybe just segueing a little bit right into what Chris was mentioning there, came up a couple of times in our chat today about the ease of communication within the shop environment between the front of the house, the back of the house, and how much of that should be perhaps verbal and how much of it should be through other. How spread out is it across how many different platforms? Is there a single source of truth that we can go to? I could see it could be interesting to, for instance, to maybe have a chat with different shops that are using perhaps, let's say, Slack or one of the alternatives to Slack versus a tool that's built into one of the shop management softwares like Protractor, even AutoFlow's built-in internal messaging. So not trying to, this is Chris's idea, right? I'm just giving a couple of directions maybe that you could take that. And with regard to our subject today about this client relationship management, right? I would be interested in, I think there's probably room for another level of this yet, that where we're talking about things that we can do for our relationship with our clients that transcend software. What are things that we can do that actually create relationships, help to build relationships that create clients for life? And perhaps part of it is beginning to think of them as a client and not a customer. I think Chris mentioned earlier about the generational thing, right? Of working for clients today where the shop would have worked for their grandparents at one time. That's a beautiful thing. What methods do we have that we can use that are not necessarily software driven, but people driven? What are the personal touch, the things that we can do that create that feel good that people come back for? And how do we keep it fresh? People will forget what you said and people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. That's different from the extra mile, right? Because it's the extra mile sometimes keeps you in that mindset of just specifically the car as opposed to the relationship. That's good. Here's a question for you. Would you like to hear this show again with 3 other people with 3 other platforms?
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, good. All right. We've taken up a lot of your time today, more than we were expecting, but I think there was a lot here, and I'm very happy, Colleen, by saying that you took a lot of notes. That was huge. And I saw all of you just at different times jotting things down or looking things up, and that's great. So I'm hopeful that the listening audience also had that same experience. Of course, not while they're driving, the way Chris usually listens to the podcast. Maybe, maybe when you get to the shop, you write it down, right? Who knows? But that's my hope for this show. That's the whole point of this Garage Grit podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and to the listening audience, thanks for being here. And as I mentioned before, we're in the process of developing this private Facebook group where we can continue these types of conversations after the fact inside that group. So I'll put that in the show notes. I'll also put that link out for those who want to reach out to me. Again, I'm Brad of AA Shop Marketing, and this is the Garage Grit podcast. Thank you so much. Until next time.